Story 1. First, some context. I work at a water park roughly 30 minutes away from my house. I got my job through connections with the director and another friend in the business. However, don't think for a second that I don't work hard. I'm the second hardest working person there and have received Employee of the Month twice in the single year I've worked there. I knew people there, and people liked me. I don't particularly like children, but I can handle them well enough. The water park has two sections, the kids' side and the adult side. This story takes place in the kids' section. All my fellow employees dislike working the play structure it has a slide, and children can be challenging, so I decided to take it for the day to help out the team. My job was to send kids down the slide when it was safe for them to go. A little girl came to the top, wanting to go down. I waited a moment until I saw the other child start to get out, then turned to tell the girl she could go. However, she was already halfway down the slide. She nearly hit the other child because he was slow to exit. She came back up, and I knelt down, saying, "Hey, that was dangerous. You could have hit that child, and both of you could have gotten hurt. Please wait for me to tell you when it's safe to go down the slide." She nodded and actually followed my instructions, but this is when she broke the rules again. At the entrance to the play structure, there's a sign that gives the rules. Wait for the worker to let you go down before going down the slide, and you aren't allowed to go face first. She decided to ignore Rule 2 and went down face first. She came back up again, so I knelt down and said, "Hey, you can't go down head first. You could hurt yourself." She nodded and then went down head first again anyway. The play structure operates on a 3-strike system, so as that was her third time breaking the rules, I had to remove her from the slide. When she came back up and started to walk towards the slide, I stepped in her way and said, "I'm sorry, you broke the rules 3 times, so you can't go down anymore." She yelled at me and tried to push her way past, but I'm bigger and stronger than her, so she couldn't get through and went back down the stairs in a huff. A solid 10 minutes passed. Then she returned, holding her mother's hand. Her mom said, relatively calmly at first, "My daughter told me you said she couldn't go down the slide anymore." "Is that true?" I replied. "That is correct, ma'am." She asked me why, so I explained that if a person breaks the rules 3 times, they can't go down the slide. She got closer to me and said, "Okay, I understand that, but she's 4 years old." I responded, "Ma'am, it doesn't matter how old she is. She still broke the rules 3 times, so she can't go down the slide anymore today." She got even closer and said, "Okay, but she's 4." I replied, "I understand, but the rules apply to big kids the same as they do for the small kids, so she can't go down anymore today." Now, I'm 19, almost 20, relatively tall, not super muscular, and my parents are Japanese. I deal with severe anger issues. Due to childhood trauma, people being in close proximity to my face makes me incredibly uncomfortable. This lady was maybe an inch away from my face when she started yelling at me and using offensive language. I was so close to losing my cool. I could actually feel my face turning beet red. My hands were balled into fists, and my jaw was incredibly tense. A bit more about me. I might look like a scrawny kid, but when I get angry, I look intimidating, not my words. I wasn't even doing anything, and I was terrifying her daughter. In an attempt to keep my cool and get this woman out of my face, I said, "Ma'am, please don't use offensive language. It's uncalled for and rude. I'm only doing my job." To my surprise, she actually got out of my face, scoffed, and said, "Let's go find someone in charge." Apparently, she had a day pass because I saw her later that evening, talking to my manager. She looked over and saw me cleaning, and I just heard, "That's him." My manager, Herm, who dislikes me, came over and asked if I had assaulted this woman's daughter. I, of course, said I didn't, but because he's unreasonable, he went to look at the cameras anyway, but not before getting the 2 officers who are always on the premises. The manager saw that I was right in what I did and that I followed procedure. The officers saw her getting in my face and screaming at me. We then went over to talk to the lady. She said, "Well, is he in trouble or not?" Herm looked at her and said, "He never did anything wrong, and he never assaulted your daughter." Then he got a strange look and asked for her day pass. At first, she refused to give it to him, then relented and gave Herm her pass. Turns out, she wasn't even supposed to be there. Her pass had expired the day before, but she just didn't leave the hotel. So, I had the privilege of watching the officers escort her to her room, waiting outside while they packed, and then escorting them out of the building. She was using inappropriate language the whole way out of the park, in front of her 4-year-old daughter, no less, Mother of the Year, everyone. As we got out to her car, right as she got in, I said, "Thanks for coming to name of the park. Feel free to never come again." With the biggest grin on my face because that was my first encounter with a difficult customer. At least it ended well. When I got inside, my manager told me I handled the situation very well, and I had a pretty uneventful end to the night. So please, remember not to be rude to the workers because we're often right. Story 2. I've named several members of the board here who were specifically unpleasant to me. There were a total of 8 on the other side of this table, and they were all glaring at me towards the end like I had just insulted them. We've got an entitled man, who's a fellow in his 50s that clearly was enjoying this small amount of authority. Then there's the rude woman, who made an unwarranted and exaggerated comment about my vegetation, after I told them I plan on building a newer version of my current fence. Next is the deceitful neighbor, who has been overly nice to the point of being annoying over the past 18 or so months I've lived here, only for me to find out it was her who had been taking pictures and originally filed the complaint. And finally, there's the administrative lady, who I have no problems with because she basically provided me with the information required to defend myself against these people. A few months back, I was cited for my 6 privacy fence looking disorderly. It's a valid citation as the fence is 20 years old, and I have wanted to fix it since the day I moved in 2 years ago. The only problem is that I'm recovering from a bankruptcy, and I won't get approved for an equity loan or any loan really until January of 2024, which will be 2 years after the discharge. With the citation from earlier this summer, I replied that I was unable to pay for a new fence at this time and asked for leniency until I could. They replied about a month later with a summons to a hearing over this issue, which happened today. In the couple of weeks I had to prepare for this, I reached out to several companies to get quotes for a fence exactly like the one I have now, so that I could present them with a realistic cost and give a plan, hoping they wouldn't find me. While I'm in the meeting telling them about these options, the deceitful neighbor says they won't approve my style of fence 6 privacy, and that is the majority of the problem. It took a minute for this to sink in, and once it did, I had some questions. I asked why. Then, on their original citation, did I have the option to repair this fence? At this point, I asked them why they're citing me in the first place when a house in our neighborhood sold for $55K over the asking price a few months back, which clearly indicated to me that no one is taking the condition of my fence into serious consideration before buying. This really upset the entitled man, the lone male member of the board, who responded that we were done arguing about this and that the Homeowners Association will be taking action in 60 days by fining me $10/day. That's about $300 and $600 over the year. So I'm thinking I'm just going to have to accept the consequences at this point. That is until the administrative lady at the end of the table speaks up, saying that the maximum fine is capped at $900. This also takes a minute to register for me because these repairs for a fence that I don't want to own would probably cost between $3K, $4K. I just realized I forgot to mention that the fence I want would cost just under $10K. At this point, I tell them that $900 is cheaper than making their requested repairs for a fence I don't want. They kind of stare at me with a bit of frustration, knowing that I have the upper hand. After about 7 or 8 awkward seconds, the entitled man says that the board will fine me accordingly in 60 days if I do not take action by then, and that I was dismissed. The administrative lady speaks up again, saying that they actually have to vote on this decision quickly. The rude woman seconds the entitled man's motion to make that decision. They vote unanimously, and I leave feeling quite satisfied, knowing that they'll have to look at my fence for another year and some change, and then watch as I build another 6 privacy fence when I'm eligible for an equity loan. Story 3. This happened just last year, and I just needed to share it with people. I was in my freshman year at a pretty good public high school. We were taking our end of first semester exam, and during this, our teacher had a family emergency and had to leave. I was sitting in the classroom when the substitute teacher came in, and everything was going well until this substitute noticed my hearing aid. I noticed that he was walking towards me but thought nothing of it. However, this person literally grabbed my hearing aid and yanked it out of my ear. My hearing aid is one that has a small plastic tube going into the ear canal. I only have one due to surgery to fix my hearing loss. He started yelling at me, and I had no clue what he was saying because I have really bad hearing loss, and my ears were also hurting. He noticed that I was not listening to him, so he tried to hit me. That's when about 3 of my classmates tried to get him away from me, and 2 other people grabbed my hearing aid that was now on the floor. They grabbed my arm and took me to a classroom 3 doors down. And they just barged in with me, crying I have some past issues that I don't want to mention. I did hear what they said, but all I know is that the teacher got on the phone, and one of them was helping me get my hearing aid back in. They ended up taking me to the office where we were put into a room with couches. I was never told what happened in the classroom, but I do know that this substitute ended up with a black eye and a broken tooth. The next time I saw this substitute was when my big brother picked me up in his patrol car, and he was in the back of a police car. The outcome: he lost his teaching license. I was told by the principal that he should lose it due to basically assaulting a student, and I heard rumors that he was put in jail. I was fine at the end of the day, and I got exempted from the exam. I ended up becoming friends with the people who helped me, and there ended up being a teacher meeting or something explaining how to treat someone who has a disability and how to help. I still don't know the reason why he grabbed my hearing aids instead of just asking me to take them out, and I would have explained that I'm deaf and need them to hear. I don't really want to know the reason, and I don't want to see him ever again. Story 4. I recently got into some conflict with a roommate after her dog attacked me. It was a larger breed and left some pretty severe wounds, but I'm okay. The night it happened, I told her she can't bring the dog back into my house because he's now a liability with my homeowner's insurance. She even went as far as to try to sneak it back in behind my back. I was already planning on getting a doorbell security camera due to the recent increase in violent crimes in our area. It came in the mail today, and I set it up and put it on the door. My roommate has been gone for a week and came back tonight. She demands that I remove the camera because I'm not allowed to record her, and she has a right to privacy. The camera is a doorbell camera that only records what happens outside the front door. She's now accusing me of being unstable and is calling the police. I told her when the cops came to get her dog after I was attacked that they actually recommended the exact thing to ensure the animal isn't brought back after being released. Edit: the dog bite was reported to the police. The night it happened, they sat her down and explained the severity of the issue, took the dog, and gave her a citation for the dog not being licensed and no proof of vaccination. The dog is officially surrendered and is actually going to a new home in 30 days with a great new owner. The police came when she called and said she was wasting their time. I was within my legal rights and said I was even being too nice because I gave her access to see the footage but can never tamper with it. I am the homeowner. She is on a yearly lease. Eviction is something I'm currently considering. She has been notified her lease will not be renewed with an official date to be out once it expires. She is on a list to not be able to adopt from shelters and flagged. Medical attention was received for the bite, and the dog was tested and quarantined. I'm actually fully healed, and it didn't even scar my tattoo.